think the way of looking at it for these two teams as well is every team that's beaten them, every team that they've gone up against is gone. Every single one that has put that pressure to them, they've been able to bounce back, whether it was a dispatching of Liquid as the vice versa removal for sending them and FaZe down to the lower bracket before by MIBR, or whether it's Titans like SSG and obviously OXG who've been able to have a really big fight and had a lot of momentum coming out of NA. Either way, we are left now, left in a situation of finding out who will be meeting TSM in the lower bracket final tomorrow morning. Only one of these teams can make it, and to have 3 representatives from the 3 different regions in the final 3, sorry APAC, not your year this year.
Not quite yet, but the improvement that the APAC region have shown over the past couple of months has been noticeable. And if it isn't now, then surely next year they will be able to step up just a little bit more as well. But yeah, you mentioned it. It is not going to be a full-out all-attempt final. We have one team of each region in that top 3 at the end for the very last day. We just need to find out which Brazilian team it will be for the side of Latam. And that is what we are here to do right now as it starts. The operator ban phase has concluded. The Thatcher, the Nomad, Wamai, and Valkyrie all have been removed. And it's nothing out of the ordinary, we have to say.
One of the things I am going to be super curious about watching as this series goes on is the objective play. Going over all the statistics of these two teams, not only throughout this tournament, but how they butt heads in the previous engagements, where they've had a handful, 3, throughout the year over the rosters that they've still sort of got. And in their sort of showings against each other, there is 3 total plants over the 3 times that they've gone to heads. They really have this habit of these two teams not setting themselves up for objective play. And if you look at how they've been able to sort of drive that this tournament, FaZe have been a lot more consistent. They've been able to find way more use of that objective. I think it's a total of about 31 or 32 over the maps that they've played. MIBR is about 10 less. They haven't really been able to dig in, and most of that 21 that they've got was against NA teams, against those sort of showdowns. So I'm curious to see if FaZe can sort of get an upper hand in that part of the strategy. Maybe that might be a bit of a driving force today.
We will find out very soon, Emmy, here. As we get going soon, it will be the mining site to be chosen first. That first floor, the middle ground of Kafe, which makes it so the verticality is going to be playing an important role here. There's going to be, well, some spots that could be cleared out. Let's think of the train museum first, where there's a lot of vertical angles you can use to basically take out the connecting part of the 2 sites. Next to that, of course, below, important potential C4 play to come around in some of these sites, especially into dining or fireplace, however you want to call it. A little bit less so in the mining, as there's some concrete angles around there as well. But as we start, the top floor will be taken, well, the roof will be taken by MIBR, the default. Open up those hatches, start to try and take some control on that very top floor and work your way down afterwards.
That's it. They're going to see if they can get a bit of a handle here and just clear that big bout across the top with obviously the piano room and everything that it might offer. Astro, he's dug in on the bottom, or around close to over that red stair set. He's waiting to the potential of maybe swinging his way up, and MIBR, they're sort of funneling pressure from the opposite side, maybe towards the fight against Bullet buried inside Pixel, a big point of proponent that we've seen earlier on in the showdown today between the NA and EU teams. Here, he's not going to stick around too long. He's not going to see if he can do a bolo and ham it out, because he knows he doesn't have to. He knows he can pull himself back and try and apply the pressure elsewhere as Philippux comes over onto the eastern side to see if he can try and just catch those loose players, force and funnel. But at this time, FaZe, they're still sort of comfortable with only the 2 players slightly separated on the top floor.
Yeah, for now, FaZe, of course, have that advantage as well, where the timing works in their favor. It's MIBR that needs to set this pace, and they need to clear out this top floor as soon as they possibly can. It's Astro from the back, though, however, will be doing a lot of damage to Lukid, all the way down to 1 HP, and Impact even tossed over, but couldn't quite connect to find the final, well, damage that needed to be done to pick up that first kill. And with that, FaZe, a little bit of an advantage here. Yes, there is going to be some heals coming in from the Yana as soon as the Adrenaline Surge will be off cooldown, but that is not going to be getting Lukid all the way back up to full HP.
it was sort of a missed opportunity. We highlighted what that could potentially do. You're looking at obviously a Nomad ban off the board by the choice of MIBR, and FaZe, they're going to lean into that. They're not going to sort of sit on their laurels. They've been huge in terms of getting into combat throughout this tournament so far. Generally, they've got a better KD than what is coming out from their opponents, but to be fair, the clutch factor of MIBR, as they talked about on the desk, is that consistent problem that FaZe might have a hand of dealing with, slipping their past the mining equipment, just getting himself stacked up behind. 30 seconds. MIBR is starting a bit of a structure here, a spray round onto the stair set, but doesn't quite have the full connection of Astro, who's somehow still slinking his way and dancing across it, pulls himself back towards the pillar side, and Souls is the first to open up this engagement. The Warden, an occasional ban that comes through from MIBR, is able to live free in here. It might be that lock-in of that free round. Reduct goes for the hop, but it's instantly cut down. FaZe still has full control over the site, and with the kit cold outside, Philippebox is able to find one before it's traded out on the exit. And this series opens up with a FaZe round.
With a FaZe round, which was won by starving MIBR at a time. They didn't really have the timing in their favor there. It slowly started to slink, and they were forced to go for these pushes. They were forced to go for jump-ins that did not favor them at all, and all were picked up as a result. FaZe, they win that first. That means that it's locked now. 3 rounds in total. So in round 4 will be the very first opportunity for them again to play it. And as they will decide to go up towards the kitchen area, the bottom floor, the basement. Well, not really the basement, as it is, of course, leveled up. But it is going to be one where there is no, C4 from below you can rely on as a defender. So an echo is often being brought. The yokai drones are a good way to stop any potential plant from going through, and maybe even to help roamers find their opponents a little bit easier, and with that as well, stun them in the way through. Celebrations, the first round.
It took me some getting used to of the
repeat?
Yeah, it's like a loop pedal.
It is. Yesterday, I thought they, because I was listening to it, was doing some prep work, and I just heard the same cheer coming over 5 times. Parker started laughing. I'm like, is production just having fun with Parker now? But I understood when I saw it afterwards.
Yeah, until they start looping us, then it's the problem. Okay, FaZe, you've been able to open this up with the defense, and as actually talked about earlier based on the showdown, Dan from Empire, when they said, well, we sort of took this and we took 4 defensive halves. They were very happy with that. They believe it's an attack map. They believe it's a place where you can have a really good attacker presence. So potentially FaZe are under the same sort of guile here. They believe that if they can get a bit of a better leg up, if they can sort of get themselves set up, because, I mean, Kafe hasn't really been a huge hide. It's not one of the MIBR constant bans, and Philippebox sort of proves why, as he's able to get the opener up there against Cameraman, but it's the only one that FaZe haven't put a ban on throughout this tournament so far.
Yeah, for sure. And this entry kill, however, quickly going back to that, will be very helpful for MIBR. That kind of alleviates a little bit of the pressure. There is still going to be some upstairs. You see it on that instant replay. It's taking out the player that was playing right around that VIP area. Look at now taking control of that as well. So that is a very important part of the map gone. Suddenly that freezer is a lot more vulnerable, and as they have taken that control, there will be some players falling back, creating some angles so they can, challenge it back. But Bullet unfortunately fell off.
It was a clever idea of teamwork there, and obviously had that little bit extra of a hit from the teammate on the side, but they don't just have that angle. And this is something about MIBR, is they sometimes have a habit of knowing their opponents. They know when to pull back, they know when to not overextend and just sort of keep themselves set up ready for what is their best game, which is that trade game. Here, Astro, he's keeping those lines on, but just misses the sliver pass. They'll realize there's a fresh opener there and hope there's an angle, but it's another slink away. They're not quite falling for each other's game as of yet, and this buys, obviously, the Maverick time to start making his way in on the bakery side. Another attempt, another trick, and Maverick, he's still trying to work his way across here. Can't quite get the full use of it, and, well, it's sort of this prodding game. Who is going to be found first?
Oh, he saw the feet there, but had to fall back. A grenade gets tossed in, and we'll be getting rid of the Mew Jammer, probably allowing the X-Kairos to start detonating now on the bakery wall. With that, there will be an opening soon. With that, there is going to be the opportunity to go for a plant as Filopox takes a lot of damage through the same hole that has just been created. Afraid of the fact that he might be spotted around, so as he quickly goes for a quick 360 scan, doesn't find anything at this moment as Raps goes for a pre-fire. It Souls a very crucial operator taking up the board. No more Yokais to save the round here as Astro picks up one before he gets traded out himself.
Huge swing back in there onto the bakery side, 30 seconds, and then knocking on the double door of the main kitchen. Bullet, he's on the back and takes almost everything, but they're able to just slip by that one. Well, that definitely connects, leaves just Cyber as that loose player. He's able to not really do anything. MIBR with a quick catch there. They exploded themselves onto site as soon as they got rid of the trouble that was that Maverick, and that's what we're talking about by that hold. They make sure they're in a position to go for that multifaceted push when it needs to be pushed, and they try to keep that little bit of a safe distance before it hits the punch.
Yeah, for sure, and I think we have to quickly recap how that round actually started. It's the opening into VIP, which is often known as one of those key positions, those strongholds where you make sure that the freezer is not really being challenged that much. And what you saw afterwards is two players on the side of FaZe trying to make sure they could keep a hold on it by either dropping that hatch and the other one standing inside the freezer, looking over, hoping to find a kill. And unable to do that in the end. And as a result, it's MIBR that just clear out these remaining FaZe players one by one and secure the round for themselves.
Now, if I'm going to talk about one of those things that I'm curious about, how it grows on into this game, it's also worth sort of highlighting how these two teams got here. And for my money, it's just been pretty good consistency. Sure, they've been able to take a lot of that, pretty much primarily, and with a couple of knocks along the way. Not every team is entirely safe, but at the same time, the way that they've kept that sort of pressure on, the way that they've sort of kept themselves as five-sided teams, the way that they've sort of played against the game that's in front of them is the biggest compliment to give. Only one of these 10 players makes any of the top 5 lists on CGG, and it's Filopox for cost. Every single other player is outside the top 5, but just outside of that top 5 is so many of these players. So they're not having these huge stand-up sort of pop-off moments, but all 5 of them across the board have generally been really consistent, and consistency pays off. Practice, practice, practice.
I mean, that is kind of what Jack said as well, right? The MIBR has been consistently good.
Yeah.
But not like the greatest team that has ever touched Siege at this moment in time. Which is fine. I mean, being consistently good is still going to be able to win your tournaments if you just have the better day than the opponent at that moment.
Well, that's the main thing here, is when you have two consistently good to great teams, and they now have this consistency. They now have this pressure to put up against each other. We're going to start to see that turn into diamonds. We're going to start to see, hopefully, these huge moments and huge plays, and that's everything that you sort of want from a showdown of two teams that, to be fair, if you think of the classic games of Latin America and BR6, these aren't two of the names that you often have clubbing against each other.
So they're trying to get some RCE. Rotero's in. Cyber Zero will be able to pick up the very first kills. Filopox, the man in top 5 who has been taken out first. And with that, FaZe have a little leg up. But more importantly as well, they're trying to get rid of that utility that has been placed by the defenders before, but the Mute Jammers are stopping that from happening, as Lucan will be picking up a kill as well. So we are continuously trading. It's just MIBR that is looking to find a way around the Mute Jammers to at least clear that utility, so they could go for a plant and execute in the end, because everything will slow them down, and the more you are slowed down, the more effective these Yokai drones will be, which are still in place and are still being driven around here by the side of Souls.
The fight across the top here, and as you said, they're pinging this intel. They're making things a little bit uncomfortable for the players of MIBR, because you still have Cyber, you still have Cameraman underneath with the potential of causing problems. They obviously already utilized the C4 at this point. They're just going to see if they can try and wing into the potential of the firefights, but look at the far side here. Reduct, you've got him coming up onto the far balcony. They're pushing Astro out of that power position here. They're blinding him with everything, but it's Cyber that's able to strike. It's Cyber that's able to find that swing around and push that momentum. It forces the players inside. They know that there's pressure coming from behind them, and Falls is able to get one more. The rotation comes up to White, but it's the fight on the freezer door that starts to really get a face of this round. Falls, the last to finally find his way inside as Astro goes for a very bold spray, but they're limited on the far side. They're going to wait and see if they can go for the strike as soon as the plant comes through. 30 seconds. The two remaining MIBR players, they're weighing up the pressure they can apply, but Astro, he's gone for a huge rotate and is able to catch the diffuser, puts it down, and now it's all down to Luke, and you can see they have the idea they've dropped the player. They've pulled themselves back down onto the white stairs. They're not going to overextend. They know there's only a handful of seconds. They waited for the moment, and FaZe took it.
Well rotated around, they're able to drop that diffuser and both pull back at the same time. One hides inside the cigar shop, the other one descends those white stairs. And as the timer is slowly starting to run out there, one of them went to check. Maybe they picked up the diffuser, maybe they're still going to try and go for that plant, but the kill came through. And it's FaZe that takes the lead again after they shortly lost it due to the equalizer that MIBR put on the board in round 2. And now, an alt friend of them has been opened up. It's the mining room, but it decides to not go there. It will be the reading and fireplace that comes in after we see so many beautiful replays. Nice. It's good knowledge that is coming down from these teams, and Cyber as well, just playing below, able to just, sow havoc in between the MIBR members.
That's it. That's what we talked about at that point. And if you don't have a C4, you still have pillars. You still have this idea of being able to swing into them. And as I called it, reduct on that far balcony, and we called the pressure that was coming through. That was the response from FaZe, was to make sure that they had that position to stop that exact swing and that exact bad momentum where if it went unchecked, it would have been a much easier take and kill onto that back bar and that back line of what is a hefty site control. And potentially paints a very different story of the round itself. Here, though, as you said, they're not going back to mining, which, to be fair, it's sort of a little bit hit and miss for a lot of teams. They'll run it once. Most of the time, they'll see if they can get something out of it and then opt for a sort of rotation. The only teams that don't are ones that don't like playing kitchen. And I would say, generally, we've seen FaZe and MIBR both lean into kitchen.
Here and there, yes, for sure. But after that loss we have just seen, and mining being opened up, but maybe being a bit of a, a curveball that FaZe wanted to throw, they're looking to go back to reading. So continue a normal rotation that you would normally pull up as well. We're going to see how successful that is. At least they have these 2 rounds in, but they're looking for, well, let's say 3 to 4 to really feel secure about this half. The 5 is still available. However, MIBR, of course, plenty of rounds to come up close as well. And it isn't that these rounds have been absolute blowouts. They have been quite close to these last 20 seconds, except for maybe that first round we saw. And as we progress, MIBR is going to adapt to the many strategies that FaZe have been bringing as well, and with that, might find some more success.
It's a little bit of a lull that's instantly broken by Falls. Finds the head of Cyber there with a swing round, and now they're going to see if they can try and push behind it, because that is MIBR's constant. As soon as they get a bite, as soon as they get something, they have this habit of trying to push, and I've heard it described as sort of being within a certain time frame, 6 to 10 seconds. You want to see if you can make a reaction, and if you don't, well, you're not going to. But MIBR have this consistency. They sort of just keep going. They keep moving, and they try and make sure that your opponents can never really get comfortable, and they have a bit of a better sort of roll of it on that entry statistic versus the tournament against FaZe and versus how they've been able to perform throughout SI so far. And here, FaZe, though, obviously they've still been able to build behind it, so it's down to the restructure. They've had some time to sort of find themselves, and MIBR finding out their hole here.
That an electrified hatch is going to keep them busy for a short while. So Raps is trying to put some pressure from above, using that sledgehammer into Kaber to start opening up. He's also worried about any potential nitros that will come through. And as they do hear one pop, they now know that's one less worry. There's still one on the board, however, in the hands of Bullet. A flank on the Rise as well. Souls is waiting right below these red stairs. Flank drones are being set up. It's just a question and a matter of will they be held at the moment that they strike? Because at any given moment now, FaZe will have to start pushing towards the side. And if they do that at the very same moment this flank is starting, it might end very badly for them. That's a great grenade from Raps as he picks up Astro. That is that Pillars player gone. That's that cheeky angle, that hiding spot out of commission.
Now, Cameraman, he's going for a bit of a rotate up, just misses. That first pop on the Ashu is not going to try and face-to-face as the diffuser gets stuck. In the meantime, a handful of seconds, but with the verticality in their favor, MIBR are able to clean up. They made sure, as we said, they got themselves set up. They kept the pressure on after that first kill. It allowed them to get them into the positions that we see them absolutely punishing FaZe on this round. Souls has 5 players entirely set up across 2 different floors on the single site. So he's the first in Zulu and gets a drop on them, but isn't quite able to connect. Almost finds the head of the second, but with the third pushing on them, it turns into a flawless MIBR 2 for 2.
The flawless round coming in, and again we tie up the score here as they find that plant. They find the opening in the side, a double actually. And with that, go for that plans. Make sure that everything is going their way. Put all the pressure onto FaZe. We're now deciding to run it back to mining. So we see a full 4-side rotation coming out, of which 2 have been successful. And the mining has been one of those sites.
It was a good start from them. Again, I'm curious to see if there's sort of lessons learned here from MIBR. They are a very good reactive team. They're very good at sort of piecing together when things are pulling away from them and how they might be able to adapt and change. We've seen it over this lower bracket run they've been able to do up to this point. We've seen it throughout the tournament before then as well. They're great at picking up these pieces and making sure that they can drive them home and bring them into the potential of more success. As it was stated before, Kafe does have this habit of leaning into a little bit of attack here, but it's also FaZe's map, and I think the thing about this map selection, as they sort of talked about it, on Kafe and Chalet, I mean, Chalet maybe a little bit more. It's been banned twice by FaZe throughout this, but yeah, it's their 3rd most banned map. They have almost banned every single map. Kafe is the only map throughout this tournament they haven't.
Yeah, and it's going to be key that FaZe is going to be able to pick it up. I mean, it was mentioned before as well, over this year they went 8-on-1 on this map. Only lost it once, where they've won it 8 times, for those of you who wondered what that meant. And that means that if MIBR is going to be able to at least push this map really close, let's just say in overtime, and maybe even take the win on it, it's going to be a bit of a hit towards the side of FaZe, especially if MIBR walks away with that map under their belts heading into Chalet next. Because then certainly MIBR, they might be continuing their dream story where, you know, they went through that open qualifier. They were in Sweden before anybody else, any other team, and are looking to stay the longest as well.
Okay, 2 for 2, and it's been back and forth every single step of the way. Will FaZe be able to do the first double down here on a site and see if they can keep the momentum into their favor, or can MIBR, as we said, prove lessons learned and see what else they can do? This seems to be one of them. They knew that a player was playing Pixel before. They've opted to get a little bit more control over his escape routes, as that sort of lean and Reduct himself is on a bit of a super solid snake mission. All the way down on the basement, but there it is. And that is entirely what we're talking about. This is how MIBR love to react to what their opponents are piecing together. They knew about that player, knew about the position he had, and worst of all, knew he had an escape. They got rid of that last bit.
And there's a second entry coming in as well. Lukid finds one more. There's only one extra FaZe player up on that top floor as the remaining 2 who aren't near the actual site. It could be a potential flank that comes in as well. Cameraman has been spotted, however, by a drone off your screens, and Lukid trying to respond to that now, but decides that in the same time they still need to get that top floor control, which has just been forfeited by the side of FaZe. They're all on that second floor now, all looking to pick up the MIBR members if they start heading towards that site, and well, with them having 1 below and 5 above. 1 below, 4 above, I have to say. It is going to be a easy pinch, you would only assume.
They still have a couple of C4s, they still have a little bit of utility they might be able to try and work here. You could see that they were curious about going for a bite on a player. You want to try and isolate. You want to try and lean in. Cyber had a bit of a drift there, hoping he could pick one up from pillars, but couldn't because they didn't overextend. MIBR pulled themselves cautiously, as we said they're good at doing. Well, there's... almost there it is. Luka just had the lock in there from the vertical. Cyber, he's under a big bit of pressure here down red. Can't quite get the connection and has to rotate his way up brown, but look, it's being watched. Lukid is making sure he is in all these positions in this game that MIBR have done so well, which is, we know where you are, but more importantly, we know where you're going to be. A great first one there from Felipox, but in a 5 versus 1 in the middle of the map, it's not going to go too well. MIBR, the first team in the showdown to thread 2 rounds in a row.
And for the first time in this series, they take the lead in a matchup here. It's just by a round. I mean, it's just round 5 as well and map number 1, so we aren't that far in, but at least it is something. They've managed to turn those tides of the trading rounds time and time again. And they found their 3rd attacking round. Now, if they manage to find one more, put this up to a 4-2 scoreline, FaZe is definitely going to be starting to sweat a little bit. And rightfully so. If you see Lukid just come in like that and just basically run you down, wherever you go, wherever you try to go back to the side to, it doesn't matter. He was watching. He was there to pick you up. He could try and go for a bit of a clutch there, but At that moment in time, there was 3 players chasing him on the side of MIBR. And they have now that lead, that 3-2 lead, where we are headed back towards the top floor, towards the bar. The kitchen is being voided right now. FaZe is trying to re-find success in places where they have found success before. Hence the mining that we saw in the previous round, hence the bar that will be played now. A bit of a change, however, as we do see the mirror coming through. We'll be providing some extra long angles towards the piano first of all. It allows you to keep a bit better control. They will be forced to use X-Skyros on that mirror window if you want to get rid of it. But due to the setup, it is easy to basically deny these. You can just run out on Pixel, shoot off the X-Skyros, get back behind your safe ground. At least if it wasn't castle barricaded off. So we have a completely castled little bathroom here. Which has been set up with a serial laser gate as well. And they're going to be using that to defend themselves inside that bathroom.
Safety first. Keep everything locked in. Oh, imagine this with a set a new operator.
Set a new operator.
Set a new operator, as we saw earlier on today. Well, that's in the future. For now, it's down to see if FaZe can get a little bit of an even hand and a half here before they're onto their attack on their map. They're waiting for the pressure that might come around here. A bit of a drone ahead for Lukid, who's going to see if he can get a bite, but they're not actually paying. Cyber, he's watching for the potential drop there onto the hatch. He sees that it's open. He's sort of hoping to be able to bite, and that's why there's an attempt on pressure underneath to force him out of that player. There it is. They're going around to the bottom of Brown. They're making sure that they can have a little bit more control over the pillars, which, as we've said before, MIBR, they suffered from it, they learned from it, and they try and make sure that it doesn't happen again. The pings are continual. And this is another player that's now on the hunt for the potential middle floor. Cyber's, he's under a little bit more and more control, a little bit more and more pressure here, and Raps finds that swing, takes the head off. 3 MIBR players went on the hunt. 1 FaZe player was found within a minute 10.
Now some verticalities are being created, and I think they have found out that the push doesn't really seem to be coming down here, as Bullet takes a couple as well here. Goes quite low, needs to be careful in this engagement that he's trying to pull off, but the mirror window is not really working out too well for now. MIBR not really interested in pushing through that piano, and that forces FaZe to reposition themselves, find these secondary positions, and make sure that you're safe from these depth charges that are coming in from below. The grenades will not find anybody as of yet, but the man advantage is still there on MIBR. We have some repelled up, we have some right below, and it looks like they're trying to find an extra pick, an extra entry before they get to the side. It's a grenade that pops out, but Raps finds the kill first before Bullet trades him out. They now know one more is at that bottom floor, and if they do realize that in time, they might be able to just strike on that top floor. Look, it finds the Mirror Souls. What are you doing? Why did you come over there?
They just did not know. They had a player in Zulu caught absolutely unaware, a sprint, and suddenly they have a much bigger upper hand because they know that there was just one player on the site itself. If they had any control over the opposite staircase, then, well, they'll know exactly where they're going to come from. Bullet is isolated, locked in, and well, maybe this will be a bit of success. He's just on the other slip there. On Zulu, you just saw the ping in the audio, and there it is. Lukid able to get one more, leaves just Astro buried inside that freezer box, takes the head off the first with a bit of a wide swing, but 2 different angles. That gun doesn't have a lot of bullets in. 4-2 is the half here for MIBR on their attack.
Was already calling it brave there, pre-firing with the Roni, only 16 bullets. You're going to have to be really sure that he walks in at the very right timing there, and of course he picked up that first kill, but too many MIBR players around him there. He was never going to be able to pick up all of them with that same strategy in that same place. And now, after Raps opening up, and a good roam clear, I dare to say, even though we've seen a questionable decision about Souls dropping down, trying to go for a bit of support, maybe onto Bullet. But at the end, it just put him in a massive man disadvantage. It's a 1v3 on the side at that point, and that is exactly what MIBR made great use of and put themselves up onto 4-2.
It seemed like they weren't entirely sure on how they could lean into it. It was a learning game here on Kafe for them, and as I said, it's not the most surprising map. It's not the most out there map for these two teams, as you see them leaning against each other on the amazing stage just behind us.
That's it, right? I mean, they know each other through and through. They play each other so many times. So you gotta get a little bit more in the strategy. Sometimes you have to get into the opponent's head just a little bit, and that maybe counts even more in these regional matchups compared to the, you know, when you're NA versus EU, for example. Either way, MIBR, they are starting it off strong here at 4-2 half on the opponent's map pick, and now they need to find 3 defensive rounds against FaZe, who, well, were forced onto the defense to start off there. So who knows? Maybe FaZe favors the attacking side more here and will be able to make a comeback happen.
Well, if it's related to anything that we heard from Dan from Empire earlier after their game against it is generally teams see themselves as being better, depending on opinion. I'm not going to speak for every team, but it seems a consensus that attack has been a good bout for Kafe, which, to be honest, with the sort of nitty-gritty strategies that it has otherwise offered teams in defense, it's good to see. It's good to see it in what is obviously a very aggressive meta. There's a man prepping a window and potentially going for an angle a little bit later. Obviously, they have themselves a bit of a vertical hold, which we didn't see too much of from FaZe in terms of trying to hold on to dining. In fact, there was a lot of pressure on that hatch quite early from MIBR.
RC Rotero coming right around the corner here, but it doesn't go quite deep enough. One used to get rid of the first barbed wire, but if he would have gone a little bit further, there would have been 3 ADSs to be up for grabs as well, and that is exactly what he tries to protect here, but everything is going to be lost now. The shield and the 3 ADSs, but Reduct picking up the kill, and that is more important than those ADSs.
That's it. Obviously, you look at what they've lost there, and that is their generic hard destruction, those range of the Selmas. They still obviously have the tin openers in the pockets of Cameraman, and that will allow them a little bit more range, but he's got to play himself a little bit more protected now on that backside. Raps, however, is able to find the next, and here MIBR, they're heating up, but Sol's just going to try and cool things down for a second with some control over White Stairs. Still concerned of the jump out potential above, but as Cameraman takes the hot hop there in, it is absolutely torn apart by Raps on a swing round behind the bar. The only thing he is serving up is pain to pretty much every single FaZe member on this approach. The quick swing round there just goes into Sol's favor, waits for the potential pickup here, but now he has almost found himself stacked up with Bullet. They have just gone on a bit of an entrance, but you're looking at those 3 remaining MIBR players. They've fallen themselves back. They still have control of Bakery. They could go for a rotate on Small Bake if they want. It's up to FaZe now to see if they can clear themselves a funnel of space, and the intel that is otherwise being provided here popped in. Nobody's home, but it was a drop there on the Gemini.
Now, RC Rotero being used on the counter, hoping to see if there's any more utility. Not going to be the case. There's also no cameras and nothing that will be able to guide the side of MIBR directly in the site. So they need to rely on the entries here in the side of FaZe. They need to find an opening. But with the smoke canisters that are currently being applied and currently being detonated all around them, there's going to be one more left that's worth 15 seconds. So as that one gets popped now, they will need to force themselves through at some point.
They've pulled themselves back into the kitchen. It's Bullet that's able to get the big opener. You saw ahead, but couldn't quite get the full connection. Goes back for a little bit more, but in this 2 versus 1 situation now, you got to see if you can drive yourself home. Still fighting the Slithers either side. The other hasn't decided he needs to rotate up, but as he drives on by, MIBR put their first in their pockets, 5-2.
I'm going to count that one a little bit towards Raps, who was playing quite aggressively with the SMG-11 there. The smoke, nonetheless. He was swinging so many FaZe members and was able to pick up the kills here and there as well, but still live. That's the most important part, because you need those smoke canisters at the end of the day. You need to use those to stall that time, and that's exactly what he did. He forced them to enter the side under not very favorable circumstances, and as a result, managing to pick it up. Something that FaZe could have done better, however, was going to be to push in a little bit earlier. Get the VIP under control when they use all that utility. The RCE, the 3 flashbangs, they could have even used an incendiary bolt from the Capitao to basically force him into just a singular corner, which you could have gone for the pre-fire with. Either way, MIBR 2 rounds away from picking up that very first map, and they are starting to light up even more so on the stage behind us. And we're going back to the top floor. We're going to Bar, which was the last site. FaZe tried to defend, but failed to do so. Now they'll be on the attacking side of things. Will they find success here?
FaZe still haven't called the tech time map. As far as they're considered, this is still plan a go. They're more than happy to let that first one slip. okay, I say more than happy. They're probably not very happy, but at the same time, they believe right now this is still a plan that they can swing themselves back into momentum. Often you'll see some teams break that momentum here in this situation when they're one before that potential one left in terms of their play and defense, and that's 6-2. But here, they're confident now that they'll be able to try and put the pressure on outside of that site itself.
Mirror window being set up, you just saw it there. It's going to get some support from utility wasting gadgets here, but Cyber wants to go really close, really fast, using that skeleton key, using some of the... Oh, what a shot that was! Finds Raps, that's the first. That is the mirror of the port. Not the smokes and not the same, well, impact that it might otherwise have, but it's still the man advantage here for FaZe.
Cyber, he's now underneath as the Buck. He's going to see if he can cause as much shepherding problems as possible and force the players into more uncomfortable situations, allow some space to be pulled. It's a very direct take to get himself in that situation, especially against a team like MIBR that love to be a little bit free range, regardless of what the Shepherd's wishes are. They have themselves still stacked up intel. They're going to go for a bit of a wider take here with pressure coming in from the bottom of white, with pressure coming in all the way from the top. Not quite connection there, but you can see MIBR, they're sort of sitting, waiting there, a little bit curious about where this first break, or to be fair, the second after the entry's gone away from them, might just come from.
Now, the surprising factor on the side of FaZe will be the Amaru. There is, of course, the opportunity to either pop up a hatch or a window and instantly put up some pressure here. Cameraman will be entering, will be heading up these white stairs, might be trying to find himself an entry point to either use the Gara hook or to just walk in with that G8, which is an incredible gun, of course, as well. But he needs to be careful because Philopox is descending these stairs. Has that DMR. We've seen how deadly it can be in the right hands. Hello, Inagiri, for example. And as he hears him sneaking around now in that laundry, we might just see him go for a bit of an aggressive fight here.
Oh,
no,
do it.
He's going up the hatch. He has the diffuser. He wants to go for a plant.
Oh, do it. All the flashes in the world are going up there, but there's a man with special glasses. Cameraman is up, but not back down. Falls. Just another day at the office, says Warden, as he pops those glasses up the bridge of his nose. He's instantly met with that pressure from the Buck underneath, but the swing on the door is caught from the top down. Souls makes sure he keeps a little bit of control here. The body balance is back balanced, and Lukit with a long arm watch is just going to be able to watch as Souls finds one more. You've still got a C4 in pocket, but barely. That player on 90 is massively isolated. It's a long-range firefight. They've got to see if they can go for a bit of a flat retake here. The pressure on the top of white pops round. It's Souls who is doing everything to drive them back in. FaZe, they find their third.
They had some bad, well, luck in that round there as the Amaru went up. They didn't know the Warden was still up on the desk, able to shut the Amaru out. And with that, the diffuser gets dropped. Suddenly, you are in that race against the clock. You need to recover it. You need to go for that plant. And they did so perfectly well. Maybe a bit of over-aggression coming out from MIBR. Maybe not quite aware of the fact that the diffuser was down at that given moment in time. But FaZe able to quickly turn back the advantage MIBR had and bring it into their own way. Now, 5 on 3. FaZe is closing that gap just ever so slightly. And as we have a tactical here from the side of FaZe, even though they have just won that round, it was on the back of that gun skill, not because the strategy worked, because that almost threw it away.
Well, I said sometimes you'll see the teams take it before this round, but FaZe believed they could cool the momentum, and, well, they did. And that's the important factor, as he said. Being able to swing your guns and make those connections is one thing, but knowing that you have the stability, the control over a team like MIBR that are often lawless, well, that is that challenge. That is that tough sort of break. And here, well, they've got one, and they want to make sure that the next is into their favor as well. MIBR, they're showing those sparks of life and love that have gotten them to this point. They're so quick. Their moments of momentum of swing back into fights, of repositioning, and most importantly, pulling back. It's a skill that not a lot of teams have sort of fully demonstrated across this tournament, knowing when you have the advantage and when to actually press that advantage. And it's one of those things, one of those facets of MIBR's gameplay specifically that for me has really been a big force across the board. Occasionally we'll just hear them shout behind us. I don't know if our mics...
Which team was it at that moment? Because I was writing it down in that.
Probably both.
Probably both. All right. We're getting underway again. The prep phase is starting, and we are headed towards the reading room. FaZe have just been able to find a successful attacking round, even though the strategy might not have really helped too much in it, which was the Amaru trying to get her in, go for that plant, was quickly decimated by the Warden, who's immune to flashbangs as soon as those glasses are activated. And with that, it became a recovery mission. try and get those swings, try and get the diffusers, see if you can maybe turn the tides yet once again. And that is exactly what happened. FaZe was able to turn the tides and to pick up that round. And with that, the disadvantage is now just 2 rounds. That is what they're currently trailing onto MIBR. MIBR, they want to lock this out, of course, as soon as they possibly can, but they have that, little bit of comfortable lead. They are on the defense. They seem quite, comfortable with it as well. It wasn't that they were struggling, maybe a bit of over-aggression in that last round, but that very first round was very convincing.
Lion on the board. Those big echoing droning E1Ds are going to see if they can get a little bit more control over the MIBR players. Whether they are popped just after a kill or just before, I suppose, is what we're going to learn here, because to be honest, as I said, it's sort of that approach to MIBR. You have to be ready for them to try and instantly strike back. You have to be aware that their game is, you got one of ours? Well, we're going for one of yours. Not that they are New York gangsters.
I was going to say, I don't think they sound like that.
No, they don't.
But,
but I cannot speak Portuguese.
Neither can I in that matter. But Bullet entering with a Gemini here is going to be held back by Immute. Is requesting it to be removed, but it's going to be taking too much time here. So FaZe will stay put for now, will stay safe. The Gemini will not make it all the way around, so they're not going to be quite sure if there is a player inside the train museum. But you can only imagine it will be, especially with the drones coming around the corner, and now Super Astro trying to make his way through. Is not going to quite spot him here, however, though, but does know now that there is a player inside that middle train, and that is going to be the first point of pressure. FaZe wants to get rid of that player, wants to get rid of Files, who's playing with that English shotgun. It's so dangerous to swing that, so you preferably are going to be using a grenade and bounce it around the corner.
Well, there it is, over the top, and is able to get the first slip by. Raps couldn't quite get the full connection there, but it was dangerously close, and Bullet's aware of it. It does not take much from that SMG with a connection to your head, but it does take a lot to control that SMG. And even in the talented hands, it's something where you sort of get one opportunity before they try and shoot you back at the same second. So they pull back. They make sure they keep that smoke canister, a very important utility that Raps has been able to demonstrate fantastic use of throughout this tournament so far. Reduct is sort of weighing up the options of when he needs to take the drop, with Lukid coming to offer some support, but the pressure seems to start coming towards this reading wall. The Selmas start to get that width, that opener, and they're still curious about maybe going out for a swing, maybe going out for a little bit of a dangerous dance. Something seems to be what they want to bite at here, but MIBR aren't sure where it's coming from.
They're not quite sure indeed, and his flashbangs are being tossed in. Lukid wants to swing aggressive, finds one. That's cameraman off the board, brings it back to a 4-on-4. 30 seconds left, and the members of FaZe, they look to hit the side. They have some rotations, and they will use them now. They need to dig in deep. They need to get the diffuser down, and with the cover here from the side of Bullet, they might successfully do so as well.
Well, 15 seconds, and it's the swing onto the door. There's the C4 caught in midair and a ski shoot, but it's a shotgun that starts hammering home. It's a 2 versus 1. Astro is all that's left. He's inside the site. They're well aware and popping pre-fires, but he catches the head of the first and gets a reload and a rotate. Hot pings, and that puts that pressure onto MIBR. There it is! Astro and FaZe pull themselves back within 1 round.
The post plans are working out in the end there. The Nitro was shut out. However, afterwards, the trade game slowly went into the favor of MIBR. It's just that last man standing, Astro, who was able to bring it back, bring it home for FaZe. Puts us up to 5-4 now. Just a singular round in between these two teams on map number 1, Kafe Dostoyevsky. And it is the map pick of FaZe. Let's not forget that. But MIBR, they are so close. They could lock this off, and it would be such an important lock-off as well. Picking up that first one, the impact it might have on FaZe is very valuable.
Now, this is what we sort of looked at and talked about here with the pressure that they could put onto Kafe, with the momentum that they could build on their attacks. MIBR are still sort of biting back, and they had the call, they had the C4, they had the idea that maybe we could try and long-arm this and stop the plant. If it had popped off, that's a double kill and that's a round. But that one extra step that FaZe has, that one extra little connection and call, is that energy that they're a team that we know can build behind.
For sure. They can build behind it, and the energy starting to rise here as well. They also realize that it's not over yet. There is no 7th round won yet by MIBR, and that means we're still in Kafe Dostoyevsky here right now. As the electric claws are being set up. want to make sure that MIBR, they have everything locked off and they will force FaZe to work for their openings. Use those RC Retiros or those Stretch drones to zap out the utility that they will set up, which means that there is going to be the heavy reliance onto Souls and Cyber to perform well, to get the utility that they need to get rid of if they want to succeed with that push.
FaZe, one round short now of being able to pull it back, and if we learnt lessons from the learning game that MIBR demonstrated, now it's their time to take us to school and see what they've learnt about kitchen and cooking and other such parts of MIBR's hold here. You can see that they're going for a little bit more of a aggressive potential burst on the utility before following it up with bodies. They have the Warden as a connection here. The smoke canisters just to buy them a second in the call of, well, we can't really go in there because there's a man who can see right through it. So instead, they pulled entirely away from White. As we saw that as a drive before, this time the attention is being paid in mainly the bakery, but also a Jackal that's on a bit of an adventure elsewhere. The C4 over the top, and he just gets out of the way, but FaZe is making sure he stays there for as long as possible.
I was going to say, he's getting very close to the red indicator there. Could have lost his life if he wasn't just a little bit quicker there. But now, still a 5-on-5. A little bit of damage done onto Files, but nothing quite too detrimental in the end there, and the smoke canisters are being tossed out to block these lines aside. It's Philipok still playing in this hallway with those glasses, able to cut down the rotation if they try and use it. And that's exactly what it does. It gets the first, goes for a second, but he's forced off as he runs out of time soon.
It was a curious mistake, but Cyber at least makes sure it's balanced back almost instantly, and Bullet finds that connection there with Raps. The smoke canisters are gone. Reduct. He's holding the bottom of red and seeing if he can get one more loose FaZe player, but might have to potentially go for a little bit of a clear push back, see if he can get some territory. Bullet is that loose factor with Cyber on the far side. They've gone for potentially a pinch on that cocktail player on the back. It's looking like he might be the next that they can fall, and then they've suddenly got a 4 versus 2. They've both suffered a lot of damage, and with the C4s and Impact still on the board, it's a moment here for FaZe to just sort of capitalize on a bit of clarity of intel. Lucy is found, dug in Harry Potter, and a little bit caught out there as Reduct suffers too, but no connection, no full kill, and that's the big part because they can pull away. But in the meantime, there's that bite I talked about on the other side. Lukid now, he's in the bar, he's got the next door, and he closes it right in the face of Cyber, but the diffuser is going down. They don't quite have the full angle from the verticality we said they might be able to get, and well, with another going off the board, suddenly it's a 2 versus 2, but a post plant. A very different momentum and an entirely set up for a retake. They're both separated. And with their MIBR try and stack up, they have an idea of where cameraman is, and with the goggles on, he has a little bit of a slightly different vision there, but they've pulled back and pushed them off. They still have a no man's land. They cannot quite get that clear crossing. They can't quite find the divider red because Soul says, this is my corridor, and knocks the first back out of it. Reduct. The long-awaited take back here of Bakery. The 2 players, 1 up, 1 down. 5-5.
Well aware of the prone there in the end, but wasn't quite able to hit the shot in FaZe. They had to work with a post-plant situation where the wall hasn't really been opened up. They do not have the re-entries into the site covered at that moment in time. However, MIBR, you know, they didn't quite know exactly what was going on there. They needed to find these gunfights, and they tried to hold the angles to, well, stop them from re-peeking. As Philipok's there, he moved around a little bit too much in that gunfight, lost him his vision, wasn't able to pick up the second kill, cost him his life at the end there. But a 2-on-2 retake, not successful on the side of MIBR, and FaZe equalized the score 5-5. And that means whoever wins round 11 here right now is going to be up onto map point.
FaZe, they've been able to tie 3 in a row to match, or almost match, the 4 that was done by MIBR before. They've pulled some of this momentum back into their favor. MIBR, they obviously still have the opt-in option for a timeout, but not opting to take it until they either find themselves potentially 1 round away from a loss, or the opposite, 1 round away from a win and a connection here. Obviously, this isn't their map, but still, they're a team that has often disregarded that fact on their rise through the lower bracket. And, well, actually, maybe there is a conversation going on.
Yeah, there is a little bit of talking going through, it seems like, but we are also getting underway. 45 seconds.
They did.
Were being used. Okay.
They used it. Okay.
I was going to say, because we saw the talking.
We saw the talking, we saw the replays, but we just caught the tail end of that. Yeah, okay. So they are using their tag timeout there, MIBR.
And they've used it. And now let's see if they've used it well. Warden, again, to be brought. The Ying is this time being 6-picked in. And then you make yourself wonder, right? They're going to have to pick up falls, because remember the last time we were at Bar, it was eventually still won by FaZe, but it was an Amaru that came up through the hatch, through the laundry hatch. Picked up by that Warden, even though flashbangs were being tossed up by friendlies, didn't quite blind them. As a result, the diffusers dropped and FaZe was sent on a recovery mission. But they decide that, you know, this time around we need to do something else. Let's not pick the Amaru now. Let's go for a Ying instead. And what we might see here, there is some options, but it could be a Skylight drop, where smokes will be blocking lines aside. Candela start popping in to blind everybody that is near that site. And just see a drop, go for a plant, have people left on that roof that can stop it from happening. Can stop the defuse from going through at the end.
A Ying is on the board, and against a team that has pretty continually played Warden, I'm curious to see the effect it can have, because FaZe obviously just lost a player on that entrance onto Small Bake because of a well-placed Warden. A Warden that they'd drawn out before, and sure, it's been about 20 or 30 seconds since they then sent the second smoke in, but it wasn't an instant push behind the back of the smoke. Even then, if the Warden's not too far away, it's more than enough time for him to reposition back in. And I guess what I'm looking for, and it's maybe one of the most rarest said statements in competitive sieges, they should pay a little bit more attention to Warden.
Sometimes you should, indeed. It's an operator that works out quite well with these smoke executes. Some of these teams are bringing hero there. There's also a bit of a risk to it. Drone gets taken out. Cyber was thinking he had a clear spot on Redux without him being aware, but it gets taken out in the end there. They now are well aware that the Skylight was being watched at that moment in time. As you hear some of the EMP darts going off from the bulletproof cameras that MIBR have brought, it might be on drones to ensure that they can pick them up. Maybe even these Retero drones that currently is being EMP'd because it's stuck on that bulletproof camera.
Well, we had the first little hits of it, and then it sort of stopped and got hit by the EMP, and now falls. He's just got that locked off by the jammer on the opposite side, but we heard the first little bit, so I'm wondering if he just placed that as soon as the pressure came on to pull it away from it. We hear a little bit more of a push and pressure back now as they've stacked themselves up. The first fight is scrappy, but it's Astros to connect with Reduct. I don't think they knew about each other. As that gets reintroduced, they're able to at least find the first, and Cameraman finds a battle back upside down. It's a bit awkward to work out. MIBR suddenly bring 3 bodies back across multiple different angles. Bullet at least keeps the body balance back on what was supposed to be a huge burst, but look underneath. They have that C4, they have that mirror, and they have one more FaZe player for the catch. He's played some big rounds before, but he's all that's left right now in a 2 versus 1. Jiggle to get that kit, wants to see if he can try and catch the player coming their way back up the stairs, and is going to bait the plant potentially, or see if he can go for the stick. There's a little bit of movement, but they haven't quite got it. They're going for a split push here. One either side. One's hitting up Lumber, the other's going for the big cigar rotation, and Souls will probably be aware of this. Can see the pings onto one, tries to find the fight with the other first, and there's the pop over the top. He can't quite get it locked in. There's Mirror, and now he's suddenly got a 1 versus 1 behind a solid wall. The pings, they're all in his favor. There's a C4, but Souls does not care.
Souls with a 1v2 clutch coming in there. Blants it. They didn't expect that on the side of MIBR, and as they wanted to go for a split push, it took a little bit too much time. He was able to sneak around, head towards the balcony, gets that first kill, sneaks back in to ensure the second, and it's FaZe that brings it back. 4 rounds in a row here now, up to 5-6. And now they're on that point. They have the opportunity to lock in their own, which of course you do expect here and there, but for a while it seemed that MIBR might have been able to pick up that very first map, but now it's starting to swap.
It was such an explosive introduction as well, and I mean, you have to look to Souls here being that saving grace, that fight that has massively kept FaZe into this, and the expression there. I'm sure there will be a screenshot of the heads on forehead looking towards the player on the end that pulled that out of the bag. The 2 versus 1 plant alongside it. This is FaZe, this is that energy, this is that team.
We just keep on hearing the cheers 5 times in a row as we quickly go by every single one of them. 5-6. A singular round is all that FaZe needs if they want to lock it off here on map 1. Put MIBR 1 map down. Headed over to their own chalet, it would be. Or FaZe has an opportunity to lock it out. Now, we're headed back towards the reading. FaZe is still on the attack. That doesn't change up until potentially the next round. And the last time around here, they went for a bit of a panic push in the end. They had the openings made from the pillar side. They could dig themselves in deep behind the cabinet. And as they went for it, as they went for the plant, it was a Nitro cell that got shot out. And after that, the trades continued to go in favor of MIBR up until the last two, which then came back in favor of FaZe. It's not something they'll hope to repeat here. They want to get the win, don't get me wrong, but not in the same way, I would assume, as they did before. They want to do it with more conviction. And that starts with clearing out that top floor. They need to have that vertical control taken away from the defenders and used by yourselves. And with these mirror windows currently being deployed, Cyber has a... Oh no, he misses the first!
Did he get the second?
No, he did not! Why do you knife it for the box? He opens it up instead, tries to help them there, but misses 2 shots there. That's a Candela used on the ground? I don't know what's going on here.
Unless
2 Candelas used.
Fading audio? I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to cover right now, but it is potentially that grenade. I can only assume it's the sound of audio. This swing in, and he makes sure it's punishment. There is Cyber able to get that, and yeah, that Candela, that was purely used for that irritating sound bullet. He takes out Lucan and Raps. Well, as soon as this smoke clears, there's 1, there's almost 2. But Bullet has the lockdown from the top. It is all down to Falls to see if they can take this first map away from them, keep the momentum in their favor. Hopped on the shield, and Bullet was spinning. But he had that lock in on the end. 7-5. They come back from a 5-2 deficit. And we are looking towards Chalet next.
5 rounds in a row. What a strength shown here on the side of FaZe as they pick up the very first. And are rightfully happy about it. It's